And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome everybody. It has been quite a while since we've had one of these, but this is Countdown to Launch, our shows leading up to the next Starship flight, which as of now is currently scheduled for no earlier than October 13th, with a nice early morning launch pending regulatory approval. I am Sawyer Rosenstein and I will be your host for this about hour-long show where we're going to go over the current state of Starship, where we are with Flight 5, and answer a whole bunch of your questions. Hope you enjoyed that awesome special intro, get you hyped up. I'm sure it's also hyping up our awesome commentary team that we have for this Countdown to Launch, like EJ. How's it going, EJ?
Oh, it's going great, man. How's it going with you?
I'm hanging in there. I am in the southern part of the cone of uncertainty still for the storm. We're already starting to get some wind and rain, so anyone else that's in Florida affected by this storm, please stay safe. And a reminder, if you are in an evacuation zone and they tell you to evacuate, please, now is the time.
Yeah.
I want to make sure to emphasize that. Someone who doesn't have to worry about that, being on the total other side of the globe, Adrian, how's it going?
Yeah, fortunately no hurricanes here, but I'm excited here to talk about Starship with Countdown to Launch. It's always good when we get into these because I think there's a lot to talk about with this one. There's a lot of uncertainty in the room. There's a lot of questions that we need to answer, and I feel like this is going to be a good one. So yeah, let's start it.
Let's start it. And a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can over the course of the show. So let's get things started here with where we are with the Starship hardware itself. I believe we've got FTS installation getting ready. We've got the vehicles out at the pad. Adrian, where are we at with the hardware for the flight?
Absolutely, and the hardware looks very much ready. We see, of course, work on the flight termination system on both vehicles. We've seen them right there working on it, working to install these explosive charges, which is always a good sign because that means they're really pushing forward to this flight. We have booster and ship kind of in a similar state here, with them preparing them and getting them ready. After that, we will, of course, see another restack, because after that they of course need to mate these vehicles together again because they kind of tend to work together. We have already on the OLM kind of everything completed. The guiding pins and everything have been removed. That looks good. The full stack so far has of course conducted 2 tanking tests that we have seen in the last few weeks, and it doesn't seem like SpaceX has any interest to go for like a full tanking test wet dress rehearsal from what we can tell. And yeah, with that we are kind of in the final stretch here on the hardware side, with them just preparing the final steps. And once that full stack is full stacked, I would call this ready for flight.
That's what we're hoping for, is to finally get everything ready to go. Hopefully just one more restack. We don't want any more destacks after this. This is the important one.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask about with the flight termination system. This one they have physical pins that they pull out before they restack it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The charges are already in. So the charges are already placed inside of these little tiny boxes. Tiny, I say. They're like human size. And after that, they will remove like physical pins. There's like a hardware arming, and from what we can know, also a software arming, where they basically have 2 steps of verification to arm this flight termination system, because you don't want to make it too easy to arm an explosive.
Yeah, that's kind of a good point. You don't want that accidentally going off. All right, let's start with some questions here in regards to the hardware. So I already see there's a lot of questions about the engines and the catch and all of that. So where are we at in terms of everything needed for the catch physically?
I mean, so far, like, if you read the SpaceX statement, I'm sure EJ, you have probably also read it at this point. Like,
Oh yeah.
There's a potential they're going for it. There's like they are alluding to the potential to it. They're like, if everything works, we might go for it. So, yeah, might be a catch.
Yeah, in SpaceX's statement, when they basically said that Starship could be ready basically on Sunday, pending regulatory approval, right, as Sawyer was saying before, they said that they will try to catch the booster, but catching the booster is going to be something that needs to be manually okayed by the flight director. They said that as long as, if the ascent goes great and Super Heavy does its boost back correctly, the flight director has a manual, not a manual override, but a manual command to send to the booster for it to attempt its catch. If that command isn't kind of exercised by the flight director, the booster will just, I'm not sure if it's going to be like an exact flight trajectory from Flight 4, but SpaceX said in their statement that the booster will land in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not sure how far offshore. We know in the past, when Falcon 9s have aborted a RTLS landing, that they've landed basically right offshore. Cast your mind back to CRS-16 with booster 1050, which had a stuck grid fin, and it ended up doing a barrel roll. That's not what a barrel roll is, I know. And landing out in the ocean right next to it, and then they towed it back. I think that if they do end up not going for the catch attempt, that it's probably going to end up being something like that. And then, just like booster 1050, I think they're going to send out the Haas Ridgewind, right, and go and tow that thing right back into port. I mean, one that landed way offshore, they're clearly going and getting more pieces of the thing. So it's pretty cool. Manual initiation of landing. Hopefully we don't have to do that. Hopefully it, lands right back down on the catch chopsticks. I think it will, for what it's worth. What about you guys?
Ooh, I hope. I've in the past, I have been, I think, a bit tad too pessimistic with these Starship predictions. Like, for example, for the last flight, I said, wouldn't it be great if they reach peak heating? I've been proven that they can reach that and further. So I think at this point, I'm allowing myself a bit of an optimistic call. I think they will at least pull go on the boost back. Like, for sure, I think on the boost back, they will say go. I wonder if there might be something very late, close to the catch attempt, where they still might abort or like try to save the hardware. But I it's too cinematic to not happen. Like, I just want. Yep. Can you all imagine the moment where we all sit here, we watch this, and then we hear like boosters go for catch? Like, that moment will bring like everything alive into your body. I'm so excited.
I could just imagine actually being the person in charge, the flight director, with your hand on the button, taking a look at the systems, reading all the data, and going, do I press it and go for the catch? That's got to be a lot of pressure on just one person.
Yeah, go ahead, Adrian. Go ahead. I'm gonna be dumbstruck. Like I'm just thinking about it right now, and I'm like, well, that's
Yeah.
gonna be pretty cool. Like that's all I can muster, man.
It's gonna be absolutely crazy in terms of like handling that. Even as like we have witnessed, of course, a lot of Falcon 9 landings at this point, which is still amazing. Like it's all still on the amazing scale. It's very high up there. But I think at least a lot of us had a moment in time where they were like, yeah, this cannot work. Like when this initially was announced, my initial reaction was like, they're gonna do what? Like, of course, over time that idea grew. Like you saw them being serious about it. But like the first reaction, I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, you're totally gonna catch it. Yeah, whatever. I'm looking forward to see landing legs on the booster in like 6 months from now. And it never happened. It never happened. And now we are here, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna try to catch it.
Yeah, I was the same way with Falcon 9. There's no way that they're going to be able to just keep landing it on a barge and then refly it again after all of that. That's ridiculous. And here we are with over 300 landings, I believe, or 300 launches, and you've got all these landings. A couple of minor issues, but overall, it's an impressive record. And again, it's the same thing here. You still have the automated checks that are also going to be a determining factor in when it comes down to land. And it will still be aiming not for the chopsticks before making that final turn in and then going for the catch. If I had to guess, I think it's going to make it to within the chopsticks. I don't know if it's going to be able to be caught in the pins or if it's going to end up with the grid fins. Now,
Dude, Sawyer, I think it's going to be. Man, let me put it to you like this: if they get the catch pins on the first try, I am never doubting them ever again. But with that being said, I don't know if they can. I don't know. There's a little bit too many unknowns for my taste, and I'm pretty optimistic about this stuff. However, I think SpaceX has a little bit of insurance here. You said getting, if they miss the pins, I personally think that it can get hung up on the grid fins. And having a partially damaged booster that's hung up on the chopsticks on its grid fins is better than having your booster completely slip the pins and then find its way to that OLM, which, we're quickly figuring out that those things are very complicated and expensive. So, I think it'll snag a grid fin, and that's the kind of backup. Like, it's like an airplane. You could pick an airplane up by its wings once. You could hang super heavy from its grid fins once. Probably wouldn't want to reuse that after, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be like a grid fin motor if I'm part. Like, I think the moment the grid fins like would be on the chopsticks, you could hear the motors like dying.
Yeah. What happened?
by the way, EJ, we do know that a 777's wings can flex up to 154.
154. Indeed. I see people in chat doing it too. 154.
Yep.
Do it once.
You would be surprised here, but I'm missing a reference.
Really? What?
We'll have to show you. It's a video where they were testing the wing flex, the percentage that it could withstand on a 777, and they show replays of it multiple times when it snapped at 154, and it just repeats it a lot. It's funny, but
sounds fun.
It is.
Yeah.
So along that line, I know Altair Studios was saying if the catch is a failure, couldn't that cause a major setback with the destruction of that launch pad there? I mean, I think it would, because Tower 2 is still a little ways away, right? So
I think I heard. Oh, Adrian, go ahead.
I really think the pad would be fine. Like, I think there's unless it slams in there with like full speed without any landing burn, which I think wouldn't happen because the trajectory probably correct during the landing burn. I think it would be fine. If it just slows down and then goes down, that pad is withstand to like that pad is built to withstand a lot during launch. That's a lot of power. I think an almost empty booster going down there, yes, you would have to repair some things. You would have to probably inspect some things, but I think it would be fine. I'm more worried about the chopsticks or the QD arm. That's my kind of two hardware points that I'm like, I don't want the booster to land on the chopsticks, like as in the engines go on the chopstick itself. I think that would be very, very catastrophical. Everything else, I'm feeling quite optimistic the pad would be able to withstand it, and I'm not worried about the tower at all. That tower is beefy. That booster has not enough power at landing to harm that tower itself in any shape or form.
I mean, you gotta think about what goes on in that OLM when they ignite the engines, when they ignite 33 Raptors. There's an overpressure event down there consistent with like the shock pressures encountered with like a nuclear blast. And that's, it's not just Starship's pad. That's any rocket. We saw, if you cast your mind back to Artemis 1, we saw the overpressure go out the back, and because there was the right amount of humidity in the atmosphere, you actually saw the wave fly out the back of the flame trench. This big cloud of condensation. So, Adrian, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. I think if this thing contacts the OLM, I mean, yeah, there's probably going to be some damage, but also it's not going to like collapse the OLM. It's not going to fall over. And I hope I don't eat my words there,
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have a hole in the ground like after Flight 1 prior to the
exactly
deluge plate. But there's definitely going to be some work.
That deluge will fire. We know that. We know them. They tested it. They will fire the deluge system during the landing attempt to mitigate even more power during the catch attempt.
Cool.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that until now. That's sweet.
Yeah, we saw a test. I think it was two or 1 days ago. Sorry, time is very like a concept right now. And we saw them testing the deluge once, and then kind of exactly in the time frame where you would expect the landing attempt, they tested the deluge again. So basically, that kind of confirms. Well, there we go. And by the way, I think we are seeing some very nice animations here of some upcoming video and like the possible degrees that the pins can misalign, where it still would be on the landing rails.
See, that's the pins that I was talking about, chat. That's what I was saying. If you notice, like the grid fins are right above it. The pins and the grid fins are part of the same, like kind of, I don't know if it's called this, the forward skirt on Starship. Like basically the top that's not the commodities tanks or like the hot staging ring above it. That's all one structural piece up there. And now the grid fins aren't tied into this structural piece like the pins would be, but they're almost are. They're close. So that's the pin I was talking about. Like SpaceX has a fair degree of play here, but if that chopstick is just a little bit off on the timing, right? I think it could snag the fin. See what I'm talking about there? It's possible. You have a much bigger margin, let's say, with those fins, just in case. But obviously, you want to snag the pins, and it's not like I think it's important to note, fellas, that this isn't something that I think that SpaceX couldn't do. You're gonna need sub-meter precision here to get those pins, but I think eventually they could dial it in. I'm not sure they're gonna get it on the first try, but once again, those words I would love to eat. I would be more than happy to be wrong here,
And also, I will tease this because this video is upcoming, and this video is basically will, I think, can I say when it comes out, Kevin? Releasing tomorrow. I can say releasing tomorrow. This is Falcon 9 accuracy, and basically the whole point of this will be also to analyze, because we have heard people like saying like, well, they've learned Falcon 9 is very accurate, and the question we are now asking is that accurate enough? Would that work here? And you can see there's some data in this video. They looked at like, would the accuracy be in a point where it would be problematic? So very interesting video coming up tomorrow on this channel to prepare you for the catch.
That's actually shows sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. That actually shows exactly what I'm talking about. See, when you get down to like the meter precision, look at the fall off. So it's 99.7 when you're out to like 15 meters, 95% when you're at like 10 meters, probably not 10 meters. It's probably a little bit different, but see the fall off when you try to get like super, super pinpoint with this, you're looking at a 27% fall off there. That's crazy. That's what I'm like. That's a little bit of an unknown there. Once again, I'm not saying they couldn't dial it in either. I bet you they will. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't think they could, right?
I mean,
you can point for the landing pins.
You can always imagine
Oh,
this like almost like, I don't know, kicking a ball into a goal for football and
Right.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
If the goal is like the size of 100 meters, easy. 50 meters, probably still easy. 20 meters, still easy. But the closer you get to the actual shape of the ball, it gets kind of hard.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't wait for that video. Again, coming out tomorrow. Make sure, if you're not already, subscribe with the notification bell on so you know when it comes out. Taking a look at landing accuracy, especially with the landing hopefully coming up.
So we all on team most likely coming up, right? Like we all on team we hope, or like it's very possible. Are we all on team it will work?
I think this is doable. I don't think that SpaceX would be attempting it if they didn't think they couldn't do it. Like if the physics, the probable outcome of like their physics, their analytics, right, or their analysis of this situation, if they didn't think there was at least a high probability of success, I don't think they would be trying it. However, right, like you're not going to know until you do it, right? That is like the hallmark of aerospace engineering, right? You could do all the testing you want. You're never going to know how an integrated system works until you put it all together and make it work. There's always an unknown, and you can reduce that. I guess you can retire the risk of that unknown, and that would argue that's good space flight, right? But with this one, I don't think there's any way of getting around the incredible risk of trying to land one of those boosters. I mean, it's only a 22-story building coming back from space. Whatever.
So it's so easy.
Right? Yeah, it's all so easy, right?
I do that every day, you know.
Yeah. Sawyer, what about you, man?
Do you even lift, bro? Do you even catch?
Oh my god.
I think so.
Almost just snarfed.
What?
Anyway.
Come on.
Nope, no, it's good. It's good. It's fine.
Honestly, I think that it's going to come close. Will it be a totally successful catch? I don't know. That's where I'm on the fence of, but I think it's going to at least make it to the chopsticks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think
Now, another question that was brought up that I was also wondering too. Zuri was saying here, in that landing, if one or more of the 13 inner boosted engines go out, would they redirect it to the Gulf, or would they actually attempt to catch, maybe with more thrust per Raptor? What do you think?
Adrian, go for it.
So the sequence is, if I'm not totally mistaken, and Alex will yell at me if I'm mistaken, they will initially ignite 13 engines and then shut down to 3. Like, that's the staging sequence. They basically ignite 13 during the landing burn, they heavily slow, and then they use the final 3 for navigating to the chopsticks. If I'm not fully... Yeah, I see, yes. Okay, cool. So, if they lose 13 to 12, that gives them, I think, a fairly bit of redundancy, because what they can just do is run these 12 a bit longer and have the 12 to 3 shut down later. I wonder if that is almost the reason why they do this, like, slam 13 to 3, because you can just extend. If you lose 2, you'll run the 11 longer. Of course, there's a point there. There's, like, probably somewhere in the curve where, like, you reach the chopsticks before the slowdown is happening. But I would be very confident that there's some redundancy there where they can just run it longer. And the software, like SpaceX is very good at adaptable landing software. They're probably the best company in the world at that. So I think if there's a software to able to work with failing engines at SpaceX.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it launch with a whole bunch of engines out. And I know the question also mentioned launch in there as well. But I think for the landing, it could be the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say, EJ?
Yeah, well, it's very clear that rockets have systems built in to compensate in terms of an engine out capability. I mean, Sawyer, you know exactly where I'm going to go to this. Challenger abort to orbit, right? Like, engine out capability and the ability of the guidance system to compensate for a potential engine loss. It was demonstrated in 1985 with the shuttle. Like, there's computers and software on rockets that can compensate for your trajectory. A more recent example would be when Vulcan Cert 2 launched the other day. They had an SRB pop off. The SRB nozzle popped off, or the SRM nozzle on SRM-1 on Vulcan popped off, and Vulcan didn't care. The BE-4s were just like, I got to do more work. I guess we're doing more work now. and it had 100% perfect insertion, or like 99.7% perfect insertion, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But it's very clear that rockets can adjust for trajectory. I mean, that's the kind of the dirty little secret. They all can do that, but it's just to the extent of which you can. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it'll compensate for sure.
Yeah, you think RS-25s are beasts, which they absolutely are, and are one of my favorite engines.
Mm-hmm.
Check out Raptors, right?
Exactly. I mean, Raptors have deep throttle ability built into the design. The shuttle could only go down to 66. That's mostly because of expansion ratio on the nozzle and other reasons. But Raptor doesn't care. It'll compensate. Yeah, no problem.
Yep, and they had that on the last flight as well, right? They had 12 engines for the boost, like the landing simulation. They ignited only 12 out of 13. So, and that was enough for them to gain confidence in this catch. So if 13 would be required, I think they wouldn't be fine with testing 12. Like,
right.
Yeah. And not the only ones that think that, because we do have a poll that is up right now for people to vote in, and it's booster landing. The options are successful, fully on pins, ish, grid fins say put me in, coach, not successful, or aborted and sent out to sea, which right now successful is in the lead.
I like the optimism.
Yeah, me too.
That's
kind of nice
cool
to hear.
Once again, I don't think they're going to snag the pins on the first try, but I would really never be happier to be 100% wrong. I hope they prove me wrong, and I'll sit here and eat humble pie. Like, I want that to happen. I want to be wrong here, you know? How many people on the internet say that, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. If they land on the pins the first try, I probably need like a solid 24 hours to recover. Like, it's I mean, it would have been the most crazy thing I've ever witnessed in my life. I think.
Yeah.
Like, it would be very, very high up in the that's a peak kind of situation.
Yeah. Any questions about what Adrian's reaction might be? Just rewatch Flight 4.
Yeah, I was so calm. I was so calm.
By the way, while we were talking about those grid fins, GeoHound is asking, are the grid fins direct drive from the motor, or are they through a gearbox? EJ, do we know?
They are on a lever, believe it or not. It's a lever that's attached to a motor. Now, Alex will probably know this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's a Tesla motor. It's a Tesla power pack, and it's kind of on a lever, right? It rotates on a lever, and that's what moves the grid fins left and right, rolls them left and right. It's like think kind of like a windshield wiper motor almost. That would probably be the closest thing that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, windshield wiper motors I know do use a gearbox, but this is just a straight lever on the fin to be able to move it back and forth. Yeah, they're using Tesla motors, Jamie. I'm not sure about like more recent stuff, but back in the days of SN5, you look at that SN4, SN5, or SN5 and SN6, I think test footage, you could blatantly see Model X power packs just sitting on top of the test vehicle. They just put some Tesla power packs on there. All right.
And I mean,
what, are you not going to use Tesla batteries? Like,
and I mean, off-the-shelf technology, why not, right? Like,
yep.
if you have it available, and there's probably a good amount of SpaceX engineers who at least have a good understanding of Tesla hardware, or like let's say they have a very short line to ask the right people, why not use it? It's available, and if it does the job, why design something specifically for this vehicle if you can just use off the shelf? That's cheaper. That's easier.
It's SpaceX design philosophy to a T.
Yeah, it already exists. Why make your own again?
Don't reinvent the wheel. Best part is no part, right?
Yeah, we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, yep.
I do want to take a moment here and thank some support, because there's also some good questions in the support queue. But Chop, thank you for becoming a launch director member, one of the highest levels of support that we have here at NSF. Thank you so much for that. Keep an eye out for your name at the end of our live broadcasts, as well as flight engineers. See, there's the list. Work Italy, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Piotr, thank you for becoming a Capcom member along with Tech Pro. Reminder, Capcom and above gets access to the NSF Discord, so hopefully we will see you there. Billy, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. RC Horseman gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Legendary Dairy Cow Moo gifting a Red Team membership. Ben Creasy saying for a throwback, look at Google Street View of the Stargate building. There's a 360 view from 2019. It's, yeah, if you've ever looked at some of the old imagery and compared it, it is quite entertaining. Wilbo Baggins with the tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com. I'm ready for this weekend. We the Greenies need you to be ready too. I think we're ready. Eric Frazier, my theory, October 13th is about 60 days from mid-August when FAA said SpaceX gave new info. Pressure came from above to license ASAP after. We will talk about the licensing shortly. So I will hold on to that question. Keith, getting an item from the shop saying stay safe to everyone in the hurricane risk area. Thank you, and yes, definitely, anyone who's in that area, please stay safe. Andrew Courier, thank you as well for the super chat. See the patch there. That patch is so awesome. Also, shout out to Ryan for that intro with the animated, where it like actually catches in the logo. I love it. Keith,
absolutely amazing.
hi from the UK, keep it up. Just Martin, thank you for gifting 5. Sheriff Tracy, thank you for gifting 1. Wilbo, SpaceX will succeed with the catch. Believe. Oh, the swoosh. The swoosh
baby.
is back. Here's one from Josh. Do you think SpaceX will have a Falcon 9 landing operator with landing experience in charge of the big red button for landing Starship? I don't know, Adrian, what do you think?
I think they said it's the launch director, right?
Yeah.
I think in the blog post they said it's the launch director. And to my knowledge, so far every launch director that has operated Starship has Falcon 9 experience. So, I mean, why wouldn't you? Like, if you have a team of the flight director, not the launch director. But yeah, I think there's a very high likelihood that team, everybody almost in that team, has a very good knowledge about Falcon 9 landings.
I mean, guys, do you think that if it's the launch director calling it, technically wouldn't they be a landing director at that point, or is it launch and landing director?
Is that why they call him the flight director, not the launch director?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I was gonna say it's flight operations, right? It's just not just launch director. It's not one and done, right?
I think we're onto something here,
right?
I like it. And Alex confirming, yes, every Starship flight director so far has been a Falcon launch director.
It's wild, man. Can't believe
Randall,
here.
thank you for getting items from the shop. Can't wait to watch everyone when SpaceX teams Flight 5 make this historic attempt. Morton, thank you for gifting 5. Devi, fill some fuel in the booster, lift it up high. I know that's a lot of people have been saying, why didn't they just do drop tests? Which, I don't know. EJ, why do you think they didn't just do drop tests?
What are you going to drop this thing from? That you got to
hop.
So
like hop maybe.
Okay, that's fair. So let's kind of put your mind in SpaceX's shoes here. Okay, you want to do a booster catch. That involves launching Super Heavy, right? Super Heavy is going to need a certain amount of fuel. Then you're going to have to sequence the ignition. You're going to test separation from the OLM, right? And then, it's going to go up to an altitude, right? They're not going to do this. I'm just kind of running through a hypothetical here, right? And then it'll stay there, and then you hover, and then it comes back down and lands. If you're going to go through all that, why not just put a Starship on top? That's going to get you better data. It'll get you better data. It'll get you ascent data for the uphill ride for Starship, and you get to test Starship as well. Like, I think this is something that is interesting to kind of consider. Every time they launch a Super Heavy from Starship on top, or hypothetically not, you're taking an insane amount of risk. Sequencing 33 engines and launching it, and that whole separation sequence is a complicated set of events. Frankly, I'm kind of amazed that SpaceX hasn't had as much trouble with it as they've had in the past. Getting the GSE to make all that work, and then have the boosters fire all those engines in a certain sequence, millisecond staggering, and then just, like, the fact that we had a clean separation on the first 4 flights is amazing. It's crazy. right? And if you're gonna, that's a huge complicated thing. And if you're gonna do that, put a Starship on the top, test the ascent. Why not? Like, why wouldn't you, right? The only way I would see like them potentially doing something like that is if they could get permitting for it faster, right? But as far as I'm concerned, like, we'll talk more about the FAA stuff in a moment, right? If you're gonna get the permitting for that, I'm pretty sure it's the same amount of public safety endangerment, right? Like, than if you just go to launch. So shoulder a little bit of extra risk, put that Starship on top and test as you fly. I think that's a much better solution because at the end of the day, what do you have to show that you can catch this booster? Nothing. Huge risk. There's a huge, I don't know, maybe they'll get it. Maybe we'll land it, right? There's a huge unknown there that you're going to have to address eventually. Might as well get at that sooner rather than later.
Very true. Here's another good question in the super chat from Ryan Hamstra. Says, where do we think the point of no return is to abort the landing and bail in the ocean? Would it have enough fuel to try and get away after it's at the tower? Adrian, what are your thoughts?
I don't think so. I think the final return is a health check of the 13 engines at landing burn ignition. Because what usually happens is once you do that, you have to do this aggressive tip over, right? During the landing burn. Basically, they check, okay, it's good, tip over, and then you're kind of committed. Changing your momentum where you're going is incredibly fuel intensive. In terms of slowing down, the energy you all the way need to slowing down. Imagine you're already at the tower. How much energy do you need to accelerate that booster again and get it to the goal? That's a lot of energy, and I doubt they have the reserves for that. I think the last point, the point of no return, is an automatic health check at landing burn ignition. That's, I think, you either do that or not at that point.
If I had to guess, my thought would be pretty much right before they drop down to 3 engines. While you still have all 13, hopefully, up and running at that point, it's easier to just get it out of Dodge if you need to. Because with Falcon 9, it's very last minute that they actually do the turn. You will see, if you ever watch the Falcon 9 landing footage, and you'll see more about it in the video tomorrow, as it comes down, it's nowhere near the drone ship. I mean, it's off in the corner of the screen, but it's nowhere near centered. And then very last minute, with seconds to go, is when it makes that turn towards the deck. So I think we could see something similar to that. All right. I think at this point, we're going to have to discuss the elephant in the room. I do want to mention Jesse here saying, commercial airplanes have been landing autonomously on a dime for a decade. The tech already exists. So, I mean, it's there, yeah. But this is a little different tech. The FAA approves autopilot. But, Adrian, has the FAA approved Starship Flight 5?
No. But there was an interesting change in the wording of the FAA. If you remember, a few months ago, on 3 weeks ago, the wording of the FAA always included A, consultation with other agencies, and B, that this launch license is not expected before late November. We got a new statement. I think it's also in this weird time soup thing the last few days, which still mentions that SpaceX has to get to all of these kind of approvals. But that statement no longer mentions late November, which is an odd update statement because the FAA gave that statement out. There it is. They issued this. And I always ask myself, why would they issue this statement right now? And the main change between the last statement and this one is the fact that November is no longer mentioned. So I wonder if that means that they are potentially moving. And we have also, there's people like Christian Davenport, there's Eric Berger, there's also us. There's all people kind of start to hear things. And the more we hear lately, it seems we are moving into it might be this weekend. It might go a bit further. I think that's also a likelihood that people have alluded to. But it seems they are very close. There you go. That's the tweet from Christian Davenport, who is incredibly informed about all of these regulatories usually. So it seems we are moving into possible territory lately, but we still don't have a launch license. The launch license still is on Volume 3, or Revision 3. Revision 3 being the launch license for Flight 4. And as soon as it changes to Revision 4, that would be permitting a modified launch license, then most likely for the catch. There you go. Quick summary.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Adrian, the fact that they changed their tune and no longer mentioned November was the big thing for me. I mean, we had the NOTAMs and the NOTMARs, so the notices to marine traffic, notices, the temporary flight restriction. We've had all that, but you're waiting on a statement from the FAA, right? And this statement, it doesn't say that they're going to launch on the 13th, but it doesn't say they're going to net November either, right? Like, the fact that you got that statement there tells. I think that's like, okay, yeah, this is happening. That was the big signal for me, right?
Yep. And just as a disclaimer, because people are like, why didn't they tell you it's possible for the weekend? Because they never do that. We never, in the history of these statements, got a statement being like, yeah, we expect this launch license to be ready for this launch attempt. They tend to not do that because they don't want to, I at least that's my assumption, they don't want to promise and then, like, don't be not there. They are working probably very hard on getting this paperwork ready in time. And I would be very surprised if they do a statement like, yeah, we can do it on Sunday. The moment the license drops is the moment they will confirm it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. It's a very last minute thing.
Yeah. I mean, if we cast our minds back to Flight 4, Sawyer, this is exactly what they said right before they issued a launch license. They were like, SpaceX has to fill out all the paperwork. We don't know when this could be. And then like 2 days later, they're like, okay, yeah, you're good,
And just to point out, by the way, a few technicalities I have people seen wondering about. A, how far can they go without a license? They can go all up to the preparation of engine ignition, which is then defined as the launch section of the license. Just technicalities here. Second technicality, because people are wondering, does the FAA work on weekends? Well, if you remember Hera the other week, and the FAA updating their statement about Falcon 9 for Hera, yes, they work on weekends. They issue licenses on weekends. So don't panic if it's Friday at 5 p.m. and there's no launch license. In theory, Sunday, like 6:55, 5 minutes before ignition, there could be an update on the FAA website, the launch license is dropped, and everything is good to go. That's totally a technical possibility.
Because that's the only thing missing, right? We've got the NOTMARs, you've got the NOTAMs, you can see on the screen there, we've got the road closures. I mean, so pretty much the only thing missing is that actual license itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Daniel was asking earlier, by the way, is the license required to install the FTS explosives?
Nope. They can perform every single step leading up to the launch until preparation of engine ignition. That's the only thing where it starts to middle into launch section. And the one thing they're not allowed right now is to launch the vehicle under the coverage of the old license. Because all the other steps, if you think about it, all of these other preparation steps, they kind of perform for a wet dress rehearsal. Like, they fuel the vehicle. They pressure the tanks. That's all the kind of things they would do on a wet dress as well. That's not restricted. The restricted part is launching.
Yeah, but for the wet dress, if it's a full wet dress rehearsal, typically they will issue warnings to residents and close off the village.
Yep. We have not heard yet if they have started any evacuation notice. Technically, we need a few more things. They are very technical because we have seen them schedule a road closure. So we know they want to go for it. They will probably issue an evacuation as late as possible because you don't want to go through the trouble of an evacuation if you don't have to. So that's going to be probably one of the latest thing. Technically, we so far, I think, only have a NOTAM and not a full enforced temporary flight restriction yet for the US airspace. But that's also a very technicality. They have already notified of the intention to put a temporary flight restriction in there. It's just not posted yet. So the remaining steps are very much technicality besides the launch license. And I think still the likely path here, I know we had some speculation. Will it be NASA? Will it be DoD? No, this will be licensed through the FAA as expected.
But that's a good question, though. Is there a point potentially where you think that since this is so vital to HLS or potential DoD payloads, that one of them steps up and goes, hey, you know what? FAA, this is taking too long. We're using it under, let's say, a NASA experimental test license here. EJ, do you think that's possible?
It could happen, but I don't think that's what's going on here. Yeah, if NASA wants to shoulder the risk, sure, but I don't think that's what's going on. I think it's possible, sure. I think they could do that. They could step in, but I don't think NASA's going to do it without having the knowledge that the FAA does. Like SpaceX has been working with the FAA. I think it's better to just go with what you know at this point. And it's very clear that, you know, SpaceX is working with the FAA despite all the banter, right? Because, you know, they said net November, and guys, last time I checked, November ain't close. You know, we're still 3 weeks out. So clearly whatever they're doing is working. So just I think it's possible, but I don't think they would do it.
Yeah, Halloween candy isn't on sale yet, so it's still far away.
I think also there's a very I think at some point in the community there was a bit of a misconception that NASA or DoD licensing is like a silver bullet. And I wonder if that even is the case, because right now a majority of flights, even sometimes NASA and DoD flights, are licensed through the FAA. That tells me that that's not even the easiest way. We have seen NASA missions and DoD missions just going through the normal licensing of the FAA. And why would they do that if their licensing is so much easier? I don't think because all of the requirements, all of the environmental requirements, all of the safety requirements, if NASA shepherds for this launch and wants to do that, they have to check that as well, or they get sued to the ground. Like, NASA cannot just we will just ignore everything environmental and ignore every regulatory and let you launch. That's not gonna happen. So I think I honestly still think FAA is just the easiest way. I still think that's why they do it this way, because the FAA is just the easiest way to license this vehicle.
And another good question that Dan brought up that goes along those lines is, does NASA still have to work with the fish people too?
If I'm recalling correctly...
Adrian's face. Sorry, go ahead, EJ.
If I recall correctly, they're working. The Department of Fish and Wildlife Services is working with the FAA. They're a consultory service to the FAA. So, yes, kind of by proxy, but no, not like directly. I'm pretty sure that SpaceX does work with them. They do probably have some direct avenue of communication there, but it's the FAA deferred Fish and Wildlife because the people that know about planes don't know about fish. Like, that's the really, really candid way of saying it. So there is some kind of communication there by proxy, but yeah, I mean, you got to talk to them. They're consulting with the FAA, so yeah, kind of inadvertently. Also, fish people.
Well, now it's Fish and Wildlife. We'll give them the respect. It is Fish and Wildlife.
But
go ahead, Adrian.
The FAA is also not consulting with all of this just because I still don't think they want to delay here. They just do this to be proof against lawsuits. Because imagine the moment they, for example, ignore all of these environmental requirements. That would open the door to any environmental activists to sue that, because they violated laws. So why would you even risk that if you don't have to? I still remain of my position that sometimes the FAA just wants to protect the process and not hurt the process. Just to point this out, like this is very much opinions are my own, but I don't go with the FAA is trying to stop this.
Yeah, and in terms of wildlife, remember, Kennedy Space Center is part of the Merritt Island National Wildlife Reserve there. So it's built on a nature reserve similar to where Starbase is. So NASA has to follow those same rules of keeping the local wildlife safe. I mean, I'm sure the alligators and snapping turtles have gotten more used to it over 60 years versus, Boca Chica and South Padre Island in that area, where it's only been going on for a couple of years now, but still. And you could take a look there. We look in at Space Coast Live really quickly at the weather as Milton, we start to see the effects of it here in Florida. By the way, there is a poll ongoing right now. When launch license? Is it Friday, Saturday, launch day, T-minus 10 minutes, or not in time? And right now, a big lead is Friday, Saturday. What do you guys think? When do you think we'll get the license? EJ, I'll go with you first.
I think it's going to be Friday at 5 p.m. Yeah. I don't know. It's the end of the week.
Yeah.
That's very much how I feel about this. I have nothing to kind of support that. I don't think it's going to be on the launch day. I guess the only thing that I can kind of associate this with is past processes, like past times, like flight 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't think we ever got the license day of. Gents, feel free to correct me on that. So I think Friday is the right call.
Wasn't that the case for one of the hop tests, or am I thinking differently?
I think there was a very late license, and there was also this whole discussion about SN8 where they didn't have one, and like they had one, but it was like the FAA was not agreeing with the conditions on that day. And then there's this famous line of like, while we informed SpaceX of our decision not to launch today, we observed liftoff on the television, which is still one of the most hilarious quotes in a report ever. So yeah, that I also agree with Friday. I think it will be Friday in time. We will have a good chance to lead up to Sunday. And I also think there's a very good chance it doesn't launch on Sunday, to put this out there. Because this is still a giant rocket. This still has a lot of things that has to go right. They're still tight on timeline. They're just installing the FTS right now. They have not performed a full wet dress rehearsal with this vehicle. This is the first time they decided to do that. There's a good chance they find something when they perform like a full wet dress rehearsal on this, and they're like, we should have done one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jacob here, who's asking, if they don't get the license, will they just use the road closure Sunday for a wet dress? I think the answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, that's pretty astute. I would agree with you, Adrian.
Yeah, I think I think what they're thinking is to roll all of the wet dress into a launch attempt. Because, well, a wet dress is just a launch attempt where you didn't launch, right? So I think at that point they are kind of consolidating the efforts, because that's a lot of propellant you have to move. And they basically perform a wet dress rehearsal with a health check at the end. If that health check is good, why not launch, right?
It's the same thing that I was talking about with testing a super heavy hop versus testing just a full integrated flight test, right? You got a hop super heavy, put a Starship on top of it, right? Just shoulder a little bit more risk there, and potentially the data yield is better. And in your case, Adrian, like we get a launch. That's pretty good.
Yeah. By the way, I know I actually wrote a plan for the show, and now I'm going off the rails with it. We have not talked enough about the ship. Like, we are talking about catch attempt, we are talking about like regulatory. Can we quickly talk about the fact that they will also test a new heat shield on this one, and the fact that, like, how far do we think will that ship go?
Before you talk about that, can I just remind you that we just went under 88 hours until the opening of the window.
Isn't that this whole thing where we don't remind each other about that, because then we know how much we have to do until Sunday?
I just want to get you excited that you have a lot of work to do in 88 hours, Adrian.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You too.
Why are you doing that to him when he's on the air, man?
Because it's funny to see, especially when he has a camera on his face.
The anxiety is building. Thank you so much for that.
Messed up.
I see your face getting red, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not worried at all. We are so prepared.
You can talk about the
just,
ship
just
now.
you wait.
We have finally moved the cameras to be able to talk about the ship.
Thank
you
you for
just
that
stop?
totally not time filler while we waited for that to happen, Kevin Michael Reed.
Did you just stall by giving me anxiety? Thank you.
That
That's
is
even worse.
exactly what I did.
Oh my goodness. Note to self: do not make Kevin angry. Just for the record.
Anyway,
Yeah,
yes,
like
let's talk ship.
how far does the ship go? Like, does it go further?
I mean,
I
can it
think.
go much
Go ahead,
further,
sir.
considering that it made it technically last time?
Yeah, a bit more parts maybe.
I think that
Go ahead.
I think the big thing is going to be the flap joints. I mean, yeah, they redid the heat shields, they redid the tiles on the belly. I think that's going to be fine. The issue becomes those flaps again, and I don't think they're doing a full big old redesign of the thermal system with the flaps till version 2 or whatever they choose to call it. So I think at this point, that's going to still be your Achilles heel or Achilles joint.
Oh, man, I got to do that.
Anyway,
So-
because go, EJ.
I was like getting ready to segue right in, like it just totally messed up my flow. Anyway, so
Sorry.
no, it's fine, man. So this one, very interesting here. SpaceX said in their statement that this isn't necessarily like a Mark II thermal protection system, like what you were saying, but they did redo this thermal protection system to include an ablative fallback material underneath the tiles. So before it was just tile, then whatever the white blanket is, I believe that's a cilia backer, and then ship, right? Now there's an extra layer in there. SpaceX said they put 12,000 man hours into replacing all the tiles on that thing and putting an ablator underneath it. So I think, obviously, I think it'll at least make it as far as Flight 4, but that ablator is really going to, I think it'll make it down. I think it'll make it down in more of one piece than, a couple of other pieces like what we saw on 4. I still can't believe that 4 landed with a hole in the wing. That's some F-15 stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you know, you know. But I think it'll make it through relatively intact, especially with the ablator in there. That's going to be able to dissipate a lot of heat energy there. If the tiles do fail, I mean, per Tim's video, the gap that caused the burn through on Flight 4's thermal protection system. This is per Tim Dodd's video with Elon. It was a small gap between tiles, like maybe an extra like 20 millimeter or something spacing on the tile, like on the joint, that caused that whole burn through. It doesn't take much. I mean, unfortunately, we know it doesn't take much from past occurrences, right? But I think with the ablator underneath, that this thing will definitely make it through in more intact than the last one.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was surprised they didn't originally learn from Shuttle, which was sticking tiles directly to the metal itself can result in losing tiles quite easily, especially with all the thermal changes that go on. The fact, adding a thermal blanket or adding an ablative barrier, something like that, I just feel like should help with the adhesion too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ryan, exactly. Ryan is actually telling me the order. So it's felt, and then the mesh, and then the ablator, and then the tile. So the ablator is right underneath the tile.
Yeah, that makes sense to me at least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say still, like, this is the far more, like, the catch is cool. Don't get me wrong. This will be an unpopular opinion. The catch is cool. I love the catch, but I think this thing is more critical. I think getting the heat shield right, getting a fully reusable and quickly reusable heat shield right, is a bit
It's
more.
not easy.
Yeah, it's very challenging. I doubt. I have more worries about that in the short term than I have about catching. I think they can nail catching. I think they are able to. I think they showed us with Falcon 9. They're able to nail this. It might take a few attempts, but I think nobody doubts they will make it at some point. But we saw with Shuttle how complicated a heat shield is. Like, heat shields are crazy, and trying to standardize them and making them quickly reusable and quickly refurbishable, that's such a huge challenge.
I think especially if you want to eventually work your way towards crewed flights with Starship, I mean, that is going to be extremely significant. It's proving that the ship can get back safely in one piece. In some ways, I honestly think that the survival of Ship 30 is way more important than being able to reuse Booster 12, or any booster for that matter. You want to be able to have a ship that is reusable. Yes, I'm sure with the boosters as well, you've also got 33 engines, which aren't cheap, so to be able to reuse those is great. But if you want to be able to get that pace up and eventually make it to the point where you can launch people, and then you have those Mars launches, you have HLS stuff, it's super important to then have the heat shield working.
Now, Sawyer, I agree with you in the long term on that one, but this isn't Flame Trench. We're not going to ding ding ding, right? Like, just consider this, right? Like, I've said this many times. It's just something kind of to noodle on. Because I agree with you. I mean, we're both shuttle fanatics. We know you got to get that heat shield right. But I honestly think that getting that booster back, getting those 33 engines nailing the catch is critical to Starship working as SpaceX's like built out system, like per what their expectations are for the vehicle. Starship Super Heavy is basically your landing gear at this point. If you have a plane and the landing gear doesn't, the landing gear, when you take off, landing gear goes up, landing gear doesn't come back down when you go to land, your whole system is completely shot, right? I think that's very critical in the short term, and critical, well, just in general, because if you think about like HLS, right? They got to do at least 12 to 16 launches. We don't know. Like, we've heard all different types of manner of launches. Let's just say it's more than 10 to get the depot Starship, HLS refueling, and all that kind of figured out just to get an HLS near the moon. You're not going to expend 10 Super Heavies for one lander. I think getting the catch is critical to getting that done now. But I do agree that the heat shield is better for getting the whole integrated system working, because we're not just going to launch Starships uncrewed. You're an uncrewed Starship, or not a crew-rated Starship with not a good thermal protection system, doesn't get you anywhere near Mars, right? Yeah, I think you're right in that the long-term goals here are to get people to Mars. That's SpaceX's kind of, they're like crazy about doing that. That's super important. Right. But I think like in the short term, like milestone expectation, you got to get that booster landed so you can deliver on the contracts. Because remember, NASA funded HLS to the tune of like $2.4 billion. They got to deliver on that. Now, I firmly believe that. I don't think the lander is going to be the bottleneck. I think SpaceX will deliver it relatively on time, pending regulatory approval. But yeah, I see.
This isn't.
You gave me the ding ding. Sorry, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you gotta not be as spicy here. But I do see the heat shields are definitely something they're gonna want to figure out sooner rather than later. I just think the booster is a little bit of a higher priority.
Yeah, I'm thinking long term. I mean,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
where you're gonna get your reusability out of.
Yeah, you're 100%
the rate that
right.
they're churning out Raptors right now, I don't think there's going to be an issue with having enough engines.
No.
That's a good point. Very good point.
I think this program at some point will just run into like cost. That's the part here where they want to start to reuse, because you cannot scale up these programs to like, I don't know, 50 Starships a year or whatever their crazy ambitious target is if you all throw them away. Like, you cannot throw away 33 Raptor engines every time and launch 50 times a year. That at that point, you kind of have a bit of probably a problem. And yeah, I really think I really think the good thing about catching is there's in theory a backup. In theory, they could put this on landing legs. Like, in theory, like if they at some points notice landing legs doesn't like catching doesn't work. I mean, just putting this out there. They could convert this vehicle to having landing legs. They know that works. They know the technology to make that work. With heat shield, it's kind of a bit of a without an like they had this idea of like an like with the whole water heat shield, where they use like the boil off of water as a heat shield, and like that was I think at some point an idea. But heat shield is kind of like without a proper good alternative. They need to make it work. There's no backup. There's no we can just try this if this doesn't work. If the heat shield doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a really good point. One question I had, though, because again, if we're not talking about human rated, at least the first payload we expect will likely be Starlinks. Is there a potential maybe for another payload bay test? Because we haven't seen that in a couple flights. What do you think, Adrian?
We have not seen good indications that they're going for like an actual deployment of payload, to my knowledge. I really think that the V2 Starship will be the first. Like, it seems they put a lot of effort into the payload dispenser for V2. I really think that will be the first one to actually carry payload. And I also think they would have said it at this point. Like, there's no point in the timeline. There's no note of a demo payload. I really think that would be something SpaceX would mention, and they didn't. So I really think it's not going to be this flight.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in the timeline. It's just one of those where, you see the question of, does this still have the payload bay doors? Are they welded shut? They're not for this one, right?
Yeah, it's open. Like, in theory, they will probably open it again and like maybe test something if they can. Like, they will maybe do some in-space stuff with it, but I don't think there's anything in this vehicle.
Yeah, just another thought of testing the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would go so far as to say that the payload bay working is a secondary objective at best. You got to nail super heavy. Like I said, that's the landing gear in this whole system. You don't get a landing gear right working on a plane, you're not getting very far, unless it's a seaplane. But we don't want water landings, right?
Yeah, probably not.
No. Seen the fruits of that labor with Jack's awesome pictures from Booster 11 recovery. I don't think SpaceX is looking for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. All right. Let's see here. We have a whole bunch of support that's been coming in. I just want to say that we cannot bring you these live views and everything from Starbase without your support. So thank you so very much. We even have some more cameras. We have the whole team out there at Starbase getting ready for this launch. We got some new cameras that maybe we'll be able to show here in a little bit, some different views. So,
me and Jay were looking around.
Yeah.
With some of those new cameras. We don't know what this camera is going to be called yet. Right now you're looking at Truss, but I think we just spotted a wild DOS.
We do? He's not in that frame.
He's not in that frame.
Here you can see the Starbase camera down in South Texas, deep in the heart of the Rio Grande Valley, where we are looking for the majestic DOS.
In its natural habitat.
I think
in its natural habitat.
I love that we are calling a cam operation site a natural habitat of DOS, which is fairly accurate, I feel.
So this is, by the way, our north site, which DOS and Dan have been out there. DOS for a few days, Dan for over a week, couple weeks, redoing the entire site. Essentially, it's new tower. Cameras have been replaced. We're trying to find DOS right now. Jay doesn't quite have his bearings yet. It knocked out. But this is our north site. So we did install a camera that can actually see maybe when the booster's coming back in. Yeah. Jay is struggling.
To your left. No, the other left.
I love how there's like 5 million backseat gamers here basically right now. Everybody's like, no, go left, go right. It's there. Like,
go up.
Unless DOS is actively there trying to just jump back and forth as soon as the camera turns to him, just, nope, now I'm behind it.
Do more. No, do less. No, you're doing too much.
There are about 5 backseat drivers sitting in our control center, the back channel, trying to tell.
Well, at least there's the booster. You at least get a reference there where the booster is in relation to the Gulf of Mexico.
Going one left.
Get a little understanding of Starbase and its surroundings.
Okay, this was a total fail.
We tried. I even tried to do the nice segue of we couldn't do this without any support, and then with the new cameras. Hey, there he is!
There is the majestic DOS in his natural habitat. Note how he signals to the camera to indicate that it's working.
There's the wave.
Just so everybody knows, there's a long trail to get there. DOS actually has to walk all the way back to the beach. And then I think they're driving on the beach, although the beach might be flooded right now. I don't know, because it was a pretty high tide. Now we're looking at DOS's phone. There we go.
Well, this was a good attempt. Again, if this, we'll get the little speed worked out and make sure we get great views of the catch and on launch day. I promise you'll have some awesome views of Starship from this camera in the coming days.
We hope. If Jay can figure out which direction to point to get the booster.
There we go.
There he is.
I think it's hot out there. Let's get him inside.
Yeah, get him out of the heat.
So we're still working on the network on this. Obviously, adding new cameras to the network does take a little bit of work and a little bit of tuning. So that's why it's gone gray a couple times. We'll follow DOS out while you guys continue to talk about Starship actually launching.
Oh, yeah, that. Well, it's going to take a moment just to hit some support, because we can't do it without that support, to bring you this beautiful view of the grass. Oh, there's the ship again.
Oh, man.
Anonymous getting items from the shop saying, let's see that catch attempt. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Steven
baby.
Also saying, great work, everybody, getting an item from the shop. Let's see, Bideford saying, if the catch is successful any way possible, it will rate up to the same excitement as giving birth to all 3 babies. Wow, that's some high excitement, I guess. I've never given birth, but, you know.
That's high praise.
Yeah. Labyrinthia, thank you for the super chat. Mercury and Metals, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Neek saying, catch is going to be wild. Thank you for sharing these moments together for the space nerds. Getting an item from the shop. Stuart also from the shop. Keep up the good work, guys. Things are about to get intense. That is true. Ali saying, I'm expecting an Astra Flight 6 maneuver right before the catch and boom at the beach. Well, let's hope not, but yeah, that's an interesting comparison.
Nobody ever wants a trajectory close or similar to Astra Flight 6 liftoff. Like that's never a good thing.
Although it does do a slight slide maneuver, we now know intentionally for Starship on liftoff, at least, just not anywhere near as extreme.
Yeah, plenty of launch vehicles do a little bit of a power slide off the pad. There's the shuttle, which we obviously know because of the angled engines on the shuttle that kind of slid towards the beach relative to the pad lifting off. But in Antares, the older versions of Antares do the same thing. They kind of slew off the pad a little bit. Just in case something goes wrong, it doesn't land right back on the pad.
Yeah, exactly. Pat, thank you for getting an item from the shop saying buying today because EJ is here. So thank you,
Hello.
EJ, for being here for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll read this out and then it'll give Alex a few minutes to double check. But with a Falcon 9 question for Alex, B-1083 reached 175 kilometers during Polaris Dawn. Is that the highest a Falcon 9 booster has been? I'll leave that up on screen so Alex can pause and check. In the meantime,
He says no.
No. Okay, that was quick. That was an easy question.
Alex says he said that was too easy, guys. You're gonna have to try harder than that.
Yeah, I think it would be higher on an expendable mission where the booster yeets it even further, right? Because that was not an expendable one on Polaris. So you would have to look at more probably of these like heavy energy geostationary or beyond missions where the booster goes even higher with even more yeet.
Even more
Yes.
yeets.
It's 80% more yeet per yeet.
Speaking of yeet, that camera, you saw how far away it was, but this is the same camera.
Nice.
Wow,
It-
the
it-
yeet zoom.
It has yeet. It has enhance.
I like enhance.
Holy
We will,
yeet.
we will be able to look at all the potential damage after a catch attempt with this camera. Oh my god, look at
But
that.
wait, there's more. Enhance.
This
Enhance
is
2.
Extreme
Super
close up.
yeet.
Whoa!
I think we need an Enhance 3 now.
That's crazy, actually, of a zoom. Cameras are crazy. Cameras are technology I don't understand.
Enhance.
I know they're like lenses and optics and
Enhance.
stuff, and then it works.
Enhance.
I use them and know how they
Enhance.
understand how they work, and I still don't understand how they work. That makes sense. Here's a question, by the way, from Ben Creasy while you're talking about seeing the catch. If the catch fails, how much structure is between the pin/grid fins and the O2 tank? Do we know, either Adrian or EJ?
The pins are on a structural part of the vehicle. They're not like attached directly to the outside of the one of the commodities tanks. Fellas, just refresh my memory. I keep track of too many rockets. The LOX tank is the methane tank high on Starship. I think it's methane tank high, right? LOX tank low. Yeah, pretty sure.
Sorry, yeah, the LOX tank low, the methane tank is high.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yep.
the pins are like up on the structural piece that's kind of on top of the methane tank. It's the ridged piece with stringers on it. So it has the vertical kind of stripes on it. They're structural. So the pins are attached to that. And it's not how much material is between them. Well, it's not connected to it. So there's the structural piece and then there's the tank below it. And that's what you want to do, right? You want to keep the pins on a part that's more structural, right? Because think about it, like when the booster goes to land, the tanks are structural on the way up. Obviously, they're pressurized, and them being full, right, is going to withstand having a huge, heavy Starship on top of it. Weight has nothing to do with it; it's mass, right? But when that thing's coming back down, those tanks are relatively empty. Now, keep in mind there is tank ullage, right? Because from the autogenous pressurization from the Raptors basically have a gas tap off that keeps the pressures in the tanks kind of stable despite draining all the fuel, right? But you're still gonna have to worry about the structure there. You don't have a Starship on the top, but you have that whole booster with a lot of hot gas, right? And those 33 engines down there. So hanging it from a structural component rather than the tanks is, that's how they're going to do it. Is probably a better solution there. That's how they're going to catch the thing, right? You don't want it attached directly to the tank because then you risk bending the tank in, and that, well, we've seen what happens when Starship likes to unzip itself from the tanks breaking. We don't want that.
No, we do not. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
London Busfield Hockey, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Vanessa from the shop saying, thanks guys, appreciate all the time and information. Someone needs to clean their bathroom sink after the last video. You know who you are. Well, thank you for watching the ads, at least in the video. That is appreciated. And Jack actually does love his Henson Razor. Michael saying, thank you for all your great coverage of crewed and uncrewed spaceflight, manned and unmanned, the older terms for it. Light beans on toast. Ugh. Even if they're light, still, just... Anyway, if the booster catch is successful, what do you think they do with Booster 12? Could they do a reflight of it?
I think EJ and I have, we had a flame trench where we discussed exactly that, and I think we both are of the opinion of, the first one you don't want to waste on a reflight. You want to tear that thing down and make sure you analyze, every single part of it to the littlest of details.
Mm-hmm. Now, Adrian, consider this. I pretty much agree with you, but do you think, and this is kind of a play on that, because that was my opinion, I'm right there with you the entire time, but do you think they possibly could have gotten some data from recovering booster 11, and perhaps maybe they don't do that this time around. Because I agree with you. You want to take that whole thing apart, make sure everything is exactly the same way that it was when it launched. Nothing changed, right? To get full understandings of the vehicle, right? Do you think that booster 11 would be enough to validate that, or it's kind of maybe?
I think the real answer is it's really you need to have the access to the data. I think that's the problem here.
Yep.
Like the problem is I don't have, and we don't have access to like what they actually got, because what I think they would be interested in is structural analysis, because I think the whole structural and like seeing how the booster holds up on that perspective would be very interesting for them, and I wonder if they got enough of that. But
it's an interesting thing to noodle on, right?
Yeah, it's like,
maybe.
Do you want to open do you want to perform a pressure test with a booster? Like, I think there's a good chance that they might just put that thing at Massey's, run a cryo through it, and let's see how the material held up. Like, why not that?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure if recovering booster 11 was enough to sway my opinion on this. If it was me, keep in mind, I'm just a KSP player. I don't know, man. I would take that whole thing apart. I'd want to know everything that changed between when it left the pad versus when it came back to it, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Nick Selva asking, don't they have a license to follow the old trajectory? Go ahead, Adrian.
Welcome to a world of technicalities. So, technically, they are allowed to fly a vehicle in the same flight trajectory with the same vehicle configuration. However, the FAA, for example, was not able to answer if a change of the terminal protection system is already a safety critical system that they would have to at least look at to verify it's the same. So, based on that answer that we got, I think, 4 weeks ago, I think they never submitted that even. I think they never went with that way. They never tried to make that happen. And that's why we didn't get further answers for that. But basically the thing is, what is still the same vehicle configuration? What is enough? Because there will be changes on this vehicle. We know the TPS, but there will be hundreds, thousands of other changes that SpaceX has implemented. What is the moment where the FAA is like, yeah, that's not the same vehicle anymore. Sorry, that's a different vehicle type. So hard to know. FAA didn't look at it because SpaceX never proposed it that way, apparently. So I don't think we will ever get the answer to this.
Yeah, it's always fun. We'll never know. Anonymous saying, just got the Flight 5 patch, which I don't think we mentioned that you can get yourself one of the Flight 5 patches at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Even Adrian loves it, right?
I mean, yes. I think Pauline once again did a fantastic job. I honestly think Pauline's attention to details and attention to making these very special has been astonishing. By the way, there's pictures of Das wearing the patch in front of Starship.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
don't
there you
hate
go.
that.
I love it. And it's also available on other things besides just the patch.
Yeah, it's apparel. It's also on mugs. It's on apparel, like t-shirts. We have a woman cut shirt. We have a hoodie. We have a sweatshirt. So if you want that, there you go. It's available if you go to the collections at the top and then you select the Starship. And there's also quite some other things in there. There's like metal prints of Starship. There's still some old flight patches of Flight 1 and 2. So if you want that, you can get that as well. And leave us a message there because we are live. So you can leave us a message and tell us how wrong we are or how right we are.
Yes, get your apparel.
EJ just like flinching when I mentioned telling us how wrong we are.
Man, too real. Too real.
Sorry. Right in the feelings. Like, yeah, they always tell me that.
That cuts deep. Now, Adrian, I have to ask, are these patches only for a limited time, right?
Yeah, but
right, they're
yeah,
go ahead.
There's a certain amount of units. There's a certain amount of units that we ordered because we make we let them we order them from a patch company. Like they're not. It's not the thing that you can just do on demand. So yes, there's a certain amount, a limited amount, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Now, what I want to know here is who in chat has all 5 of them.
Yep.
Who's real?
Ooh.
Who's real? Who has all the patches? Let me know. Just out of curiosity, because that's cool.
Okay. Disclaimer
no, you
from
buy
the
DOS from the store.
Yeah, disclaimer from the store team. While DAS is on that picture, you will not receive DAS for $15.
He's worth way more than that. Yeah.
I'll take 1 DOS, please.
At least $16. Come on.
Starship patches. Collect the whole set. That's actually a lot more than I thought. That's awesome, guys. Thank you.
Nice. Ben Creasy, on Kevin's behalf, go whatever ship number that is. I'm not going to read it.
Who was that? Thank you, Ben. I appreciate you.
Why did we let Kevin talk on these?
Lizzie, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Jason, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Mighty Don, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. RC Horseman, when will there be Sick Note for Launch be in the store? Okay.
Oh, I now got it.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah,
we should get one of those.
Yeah.
Put
like
one
a
of those
card,
on the shirt.
like a template of like, dear coworkers, I cannot attend work tomorrow because of this thing. Picture of Starship.
Yep. Yeah, we need that. Legendary Cow. Do we know if there are any improvements to the Starlink coverage? I mean, I feel like the Starlink coverage held up pretty darn well.
Yeah, I mean, basically having no interrupted views through the whole plasma re-entry. I think that's hard to top. Like that's up there.
I think so too.
That was the wildest thing. In case anybody's wondered why we're geeking out so hard over that footage, like if you watch any of our reactions here, that's never been imaged, guys. The closest thing to getting a re-entry footage like that, I mean, it would be the Silts pod that was installed on Columbia during the shuttle program. It was basically a camera pod mounted on the very top of the vertical stabilizer, pointed out at the wings, and even then, that was a FLIR camera. It wasn't like a visible light. That's, guys, you can test like re-entry on a small scale with an arc jet, but not something the size of a 7-story building. There's no test facility in the world that can simulate that. That's why that footage was crazy, because quite actually no one's ever seen that type of footage before. You do have capsules, but when capsules are kind of re-entering backwards with the heat shield facing towards the plasma, and you do have cameras looking out, so you can see the trail, but you're not going to see like where the actual air molecules build up on the thermal protection system, build up plasma, and then have the plasma streak off. Like that's never, nobody's ever seen anything like that, which is, it's crazy footage. And hopefully we see it again, right?
Hopefully. We've got Space Pope. Space Pope. With the $50 super chat saying, "Space be with you." Thank you, Space Pope. And
also with you.
Go.
No, nothing. Adrian, say something.
No, I think there's a good amount of researchers about plasma and about like these kind of atmospheric conditions that are very, very happy about that footage. I would just want to add that. I bet you there are papers around already that use this footage to quite excessively. And I bet you, with the fact that this might become one of the most flying rockets in the world, hopefully, if it reaches its goal, we will see a lot of re-entry footage. That's kind of nice for research. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's all good. Ali DeMercy with 150 gifted Red Team memberships. Unbelievable.
You're the man, buddy. Thank you so much.
Hype train indeed. 50 plus a second 50 plus a third 50. One more, Kev. There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. If you got one of the gifted memberships, please make sure to give Ali a thank you. And get ready to enjoy some awesome member perks. Don't forget, during the launch, there's a members multi-stream in 4K. So there's a lot of exciting things coming up that you should be able to enjoy. So thank you. Mighty Dundon, thank you for gifting another 5 Red Team memberships. Doug, saying, I'm confident the catch will succeed. If not, I'll have the Kung Pao Crow, thanks. I've never heard anyone actually put sauce on it. I've eaten crow, but not actually, it's a saying. Never heard anyone put sauce on it. EJ loves it.
That was pretty funny. Nice.
Robert, saying you do a great job. Thank you. It's a very, I think it's more of an American saying. I'm sure there's some crazy German saying that goes along with it.
I will not start to get back into every time I say German sayings at the NSF team laughs at me because they're like, "Oh, your sayings are so wonky," and then they're talking about that it's raining cats and dogs, and I'm like, "Oh, my sayings are wonky."
Hey, wait, say zipper merge, Adrian.
Zipper merge.
Zipper merging, like on the highway. Say it.
Oh, you mean Reißverschlussverfahren?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
That's all one word, huh?
Yeah, it's Reißverschlussverfahren. It's because it's a zipper, a Reißverschluss. So it's the process of merging using a Reißverschluss. So Reißverschlussverfahren.
There you go.
Cats and dogs, though.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
By the way, Allie, with another 50 Red Team memberships gifted. I just want to say thank you one more time before we sign off here. Thank you especially to our launch directors and flight engineers. The highest level of support that we have here. It gets your name at the end of Countdown to Launch, the end of Flame Trench. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the team that joined me here. Adrian, thank you so much.
I need to find the access to the server where this song is stored on, and I need to delete it. That's all I'm gonna say here as my outro. Thanks for having me.
What a good use of time. EJ, thank you as well.
Thank you very much for having me, Sawyer. And thank you everybody out there watching. It's a privilege being here, and I try to have fun with it. So thank you very much.
Don't forget, you can get the latest on what's going on with Starship on all of our social media accounts. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we have other socials as well. Thank you, Starship, for joining us as well. Very quiet today, but thank you. Flying soon. That was good, Kevin, that was good. But yes, make sure you follow the socials, get all the awesome pictures and clips of the FTS install and everything. So, lots to come there. Don't forget we have Starbase Live 24/7, where you can follow everything leading up to launch. We also have Space Coast Live 24/7, where you can keep an eye on the effects of Hurricane Milton as it approaches the Kennedy Space Center. Lots of good stuff there. I've been your host, Sawyer Rosenstein. We will see you back here for the next Countdown to Launch tomorrow at 3. Until then, have a great one, everybody.
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RA-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight speed off. Say again, speed off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.